Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it might be. Good to be with you. My name is Nicholas Ivans. Maybe we've met before at one of the other conferences or other places. Wish we could be together face to face, but this year is a unique year. So I'd like today to talk to you a little bit about writing a new course. Probably you know that I've been involved with some colleagues to develop the course writer training for new TEE course writers. And just like to think about that a little bit today and invite you to consider maybe joining that group of people who are writing new courses. So let me share my screen here. Um, just a moment. So as I mentioned, want to talk about writing a new course that is contextually and personally relevant. We're calling these 21st century transformative learning TEE courses. So that transformative learning and 21st century looking forward to what is the context in the future and making those relevant to each of your programs. Maybe you've noticed that the world has changed. It's changed in a whole array of uh, areas. Economically, think of 40 years ago and the price of a candy bar and what you have to pay today, or for sweet potatoes or anything really. The politics have certainly changed in your country, probably depending on where you're from, maybe completely changed, or maybe as in the United States, we still have the same government, but we've seen changes recently also. The church has certainly changed. Some of you come from countries where there was no church 40 years ago, and now you have a fairly mature group church, maybe believers who have been Christians for 30 years, have been ministering for many of those years and are mature. For the rest of us in countries where the church has been around, we also are seeing changes in how people view scripture, how people view being a member of a church, and where truth comes from. It's where information is so available all over that people don't necessarily agree with the pastor, and they can come up with many articles that disagree. So changes in the church. Changes in technology, of course, and we're using Zoom right now, so that's one way. Transportation has changed. People can fly all over the world. If we were meeting face to face, we all would have had to get visas and plane tickets and um, arrived at the same destination. And we don't think that much about it. But you think 40 years ago, 1981, that was not typical at all for people to get on an airplane and go somewhere just for a few days. Education has changed, and that's more our topic. Research over the last 40 years has certainly confirmed a lot of the things that TEE does already: meeting in small groups, facilitation, um, learning together, but also brain research has confirmed these things. And the research has shown that there are things that we can intentionally build into the courses and the learners experience so that they learn more deeply. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So the question we want to consider is, should you write a new course? going to take a little bit of a different approach to that in answering this question. Why a new course? Well, if you look at the New Testament, it was written to address the new issues that arose in the different places. Those situations were unique to each location. For example, in Corinth, if you think of the issues in Corinth that Paul wrote about, those were not the issues that were in Philippi, for example. And the issues in Galatia were not the issues that Paul wrote about in Ephesus. So just from these few examples, we can see that even in the New Testament, these letters that we could call courses were written uniquely to the locations. And the people were unique also. Those who were in Corinth were unique and different culturally from those in Philippi, for example, or in Jerusalem. But we also see the letters written to individuals, Philemon, Timothy, Titus. What Paul wrote to them was very different. Timothy was rather timid, so Paul encourages him. Philemon was a slave owner, and it was a very personal letter to him. And so we see the differences in how these were written. And the theology was unique also. Different emphasis. It wasn't different theology, it was just different emphasis. So in Corinth, they had certain situations, emphasized certain theology. Romans certainly was heavily written heavily towards Jewish believers and their background with the law, whereas other Corinth didn't have that background necessarily. So anyway, the theology was unique, but also the people who wrote the books had a unique take on the theology. John emphasized love, James, faith and works, Peter, all of these had a unique approach. Not different, not wrong, just different to fit the situations that they were writing to. So thinking about you writing your course, a new course, these are just to encourage you that you know your situation. And so you're an expert on the people who live there, on the situations, the theology that is a challenge for people, and basically context. Translated courses are good as far as they're relevant in each context. For example, we read the letter to Philippi and we gain understanding and encouragement, and it's profitable. But if we don't understand the situation, and we are far from that situation and those people and what they were going through, we have to work harder to make that relevant for ourselves. But if we were living in Philippi at the time and we knew about the conflict between Syntyche and Euodia, well, then that would be very relevant. We would catch the meaning of Paul's letter very easily. My example on this is if we use a translated marriage course from the West, let's say from America, then the chapter on what to do with my second wife is completely missing, because we don't have that chapter in our marriage courses. There are other examples, ancestor worship. We don't do that here. So translated course for Taiwan, for example, where it's very prevalent, there's not going to be that. Or arranged marriages also. Some of you come from cultures where your parents would arrange your marriage when you were 2 years old, and that chapter wouldn't be in it. So you are experts in your own situation. And we have a dozen writing teams writing new courses based on transformative learning principles for their own context, for their own people. And these courses are written in their local languages. Their focus is transformation in their situation and not really worrying whether that's relevant to a situation in another culture. Aiming at, like Philippi was written to the people in Philippi, these are written for their own context. And the framework that we're using is called situation response development, developing a response to the situation that they analyze. Did you know that we need your prayer? Because we were not able to do the second workshop in Russia last year, we're refocusing and developing a set of workbooks to provide to new course writers. And I'm the main writer on that, taking things that we did in the first set of workshops. But those who are in Russia and the Orta project need your prayers, and I need your prayers along with Hannah Ruth. We're working on that together. So is God leading you to write a new course? Do you see gaps in the course offerings and some frustration in seeing the situations that you want to see God bring change to in your context, in your program? And do you see ways that people struggle and God would like to use you to bring encouragement? Is God leading you and your team to write new courses? As I mentioned in the beginning, the world has changed and you can change it for the better, one course at a time, as these three gentlemen are doing. So if you're interested in the whole idea of writing a new course in this way, contact Increase Association office. You have the contact information, so I'll end here. Thanks for letting me participate. Again, I wish that I could be there face to face. Yeah, we can edit that out, hopefully. But if not, good to see you.